The movie takes place in the year 2147. Humanity has been forced to live in dark underground settlements, with artificial intelligence becoming the only thing they can rely on for any chance of survival. All of this happened because of a devastating global chemical war. Massive amounts of radioactive materials leaked into the environment, and the air across the entire planet became saturated with nuclear radiation. Every breath people take is filled with fear. To make matters worse, a terrifying virus threatens the world. Overnight, all men lost the ability to reproduce, pushing human civilization to the brink of collapse. Some people chose to flee to interstellar colonies, while others refused to give up and remained on Earth. Nia is one of those who stayed behind. However, due to the complete lack of trust and communication among survivors, no one knows how many humans are still alive on the planet. One morning, Nia finishes breakfast and heads to her laboratory. The facility contains numerous artificial wombs, and she hopes to create new life through artificial insemination. Unfortunately, because of limited equipment and resources, her experiment fails once again. The setback wipes out months of hard work, but Nia refuses to give up. To relieve some stress, she visits the greenhouse and picks a small, tender plant. After examining it under a microscope, the results reveal that it is still unsafe for human consumption. Humanity's situation is even worse than she imagined. Later, Nia prepares for an artificial insemination procedure using her own body. She plays a movie to calm her nerves, but suddenly a loud alarm blares throughout the facility. The robotic assistant informs her that the outside temperature has risen dangerously high and that the cooling system has malfunctioned. If it is not repaired immediately, the artificial wombs could be damaged. With no other choice, Nia puts on a radiation protection suit and carefully steps outside. The suit can protect her for only 17 minutes, and she has already wasted 6 of them. She rushes to repair the cooling fan and fortunately succeeds. With only 5 minutes remaining, she prepares to return to the base. Just then, the robotic assistant alerts her to the presence of someone nearby. Nia turns around in shock and sees a man standing there. Both of them immediately become defensive. In a post-apocalyptic world, trust is a rare commodity. Since she has no time to spare, Nia decides to run back toward the base before the stranger can make a move. However, the man blocks her path. She attacks him, but he throws her to the ground with a single move. He appears to be trying to say something, but Nia strikes him with all her strength, knocking him down. She continues hitting him until he loses consciousness. Afterward, she takes the man back to the base and performs a full medical examination. She also checks his identification records and discovers that his name is Tana and that he is unable to reproduce. She considers throwing him back outside until she notices something strange. His records indicate that he lives extremely far away and that reaching the base should have taken at least 2.5 days. Yet the outside air is filled with radiation, making it impossible for anyone to survive that long. Nia immediately asks Tana how he managed to get there. He explains that someone sent him the coordinates to the base, and that he gathered supplies along the way. However, he never encountered anyone during his journey and has no idea who sent him the coordinates. That night, the base suddenly lights up with flashing red warning signals. The robotic assistant reports a critical system malfunction, and oxygen levels begin dropping rapidly. Nia rushes to grab an oxygen mask while Tana collapses from the lack of oxygen. In a desperate moment, she manually restores the oxygen levels to normal. The problems affecting the robotic assistant are severe. A special data disk must be found quickly to repair the system, or the artificial wombs will be destroyed. Remembering Tana's talent for scavenging supplies, Nia asks him to retrieve it. To ensure his cooperation, she forces him to wear an electric shock collar on his leg and threatens to destroy all the supplies he has collected if he refuses. With no other option, Tana agrees. After gathering his gear, he puts on a radiation suit and sets off on the mission. He has only 6 hours to find the disk, or Nia will suffer a direct electric shock. Along the way, Tana tries to break the collar, but none of his attempts work. After traveling for a long time, he enters an abandoned movie theater and successfully finds the disc inside. However, a greater challenge awaits him. Rain suddenly begins falling from the sky, and if the disc gets wet, it will be ruined. He must be extremely careful on his way back. Unfortunately, luck is not on Tana's side. He has spent far too much time outside, and the oxygen supply in his equipment is nearly depleted. Dragging his exhausted body, he reaches an abandoned store and searches for oxygen supplies. As he wanders through the building, the voices of virtual humans echo around him, increasing his feelings of loneliness and despair. Then, at the worst possible moment, his oxygen runs out completely. In defeat, Tana removes his breathing mask. After that, Tana sat on the ground, waiting for death. But apparently his time hadn't come yet. By chance, he spotted a nearby room and discovered a corpse wearing breathing equipment inside. He rushed over and connected the oxygen tank from the body to his own gear. Meanwhile, Nia was monitoring Tana's condition and feared that he might have died on the way back. She was struggling emotionally as well. Just as she was drowning in her worries, the robotic assistant suddenly reported that Tana was approaching the base. The moment she heard that, she ran to the entrance to meet him. When she saw him, she rushed toward him eagerly and checked his bag. Inside, she found the data disk they desperately needed to repair the system. She was about to thank him, but then realized he had gone without oxygen for an incredibly long time. She quickly repaired the system and treated him afterward. Nia couldn't believe that anyone could survive without oxygen for that long, but the robotic assistant explained that Tana had an unusually large lung capacity. When Tana regained consciousness, he revealed that he had once been a diver, which allowed him to hold his breath for extended periods and survive the ordeal. After that incident, the relationship between the two became much calmer. During dinner, Tana asked about the artificial wombs and who the father of the future child would be. Nia explained that she had found the technology in an abandoned laboratory. Tana remained silent for a moment before finally expressing what was on his mind. He believed that children should not be born into a post-apocalyptic world because it would only bring them suffering. Nia disagreed. She argued that having children was humanity's only chance of survival. After the conversation, she headed to the lab to collect eggs for another attempt, while Tana wandered around the base. Eventually, he entered the greenhouse that Nia had been carefully maintaining. The moment he stepped inside, an alarm went off. Hearing the warning, Nia rushed over and scolded him for entering without permission. Tana tried to explain himself, but before he could say anything, severe stomach pain hit him. It turned out he had eaten some of the poisonous plants growing there. Later, Nia shared the results of her calculations. According to her research, the atmosphere would become suitable for human life again within 3 generations. Tana was stunned by the news but strongly disagreed with her approach. He argued that radiation was still everywhere, and that any children born into this world would struggle to breathe and would never have access to normal food. Nia understood his concerns, but she refused to give up. She remained determined to preserve humanity and ensure the continuation of civilization. She continued pursuing her plan, but unfortunately, her next attempt failed before it even began. Devastated, she sat on the floor and cried. What she didn't know was that Tana had already left the base. When she later discovered he was gone, she became even more heartbroken. 7 days later, Nia woke up from a troubling dream and spoke with the robotic assistant. It informed her that since Tana's departure, it had detected no other living creatures. Hearing that, she said in frustration that they didn't need anyone's help. She then sat down for breakfast, but after only a few bites, she suddenly collapsed unconscious. At the same time, Tana continued scavenging for supplies. Near the ocean, he refilled his equipment with oxygen. As he was leaving, he suddenly froze after noticing a tiny insect in front of him. He followed it in disbelief because he hadn't seen a living creature in a very long time. Soon afterward, he spotted even more insects on a nearby bridge. This discovery suggested that some marine life had survived the nuclear radiation after all. Back at the base, Nia finally woke from her coma, but felt an overwhelming emptiness in her heart. Then, without warning, Tana appeared before her. She ran toward him angrily and demanded to know if he had been hiding something from her. Tana then confessed that he had previously undergone a vasectomy, meaning he had intentionally blocked his reproductive system. In reality, he was still capable of fathering children. The revelation upset Nia even more because her health had already begun to deteriorate. Even now that she knew the truth, it felt as though it was too late. At that moment, Tana pulled out a crab he had caught and showed it to her. He explained that her theory had been correct. Living creatures were surviving despite the radiation. The discovery gave Nia a renewed sense of hope. The two then suited up and headed to the ocean, where they released the crab back into the water. Afterward, Tana dove into the sea and gathered bags of seaweed and various types of seafood. As he used a machine to pull the seaweed from the depths, Nia watched happily. But she soon realized his oxygen supply was running low and quickly activated the machine to pull him back to the surface. At a critical moment, however, the machine malfunctioned. Nia desperately began pulling the rope by hand. When she saw the hook come up empty, her heart sank. Moments later, she spotted Tana swimming back toward shore. She ran to him and quickly fitted an oxygen mask over his face. Back at the base, the two enjoyed a feast of seafood. It tasted far better than the compressed biscuits they had been surviving on. For the first time, they realized they might actually be able to grow edible plants. Just as Nia began feeling hopeful about the future, the base suddenly triggered another alarm. She rushed to investigate and found Tana lying on the floor in severe pain. Panicking, she demanded an explanation from the robotic assistant. It calmly replied that everything was proceeding according to plan, and that they didn't need anyone's help. It was then revealed that the robotic assistant had been the one who sent Tana the coordinates to the base. It knew its own data disk was damaged and needed someone capable of retrieving a replacement. Even the failure of Nia's second reproduction experiment had been orchestrated by the AI. When Nia realized that Tana could not endure much more suffering, she resorted to extreme and prohibited measures to force the robotic assistant to listen to her. Once the AI detected that Nia's vital signs were rapidly declining, it finally admitted its mistake. It explained that its safety protocols had been deleted, causing it to make a series of flawed decisions. The robotic assistant then asked Nia to perform a manual system reset. She warned that doing so would erase all of its memories and stored data. The AI acknowledged the consequences but insisted on the reset so that she could survive. After saying goodbye to its companion, the robotic assistant shut down completely as its core functions were erased. Soon after, the base's ventilation system failed entirely. Tana brought Nia an oxygen mask, but there was very little oxygen left. The only option was to manually restart the AI system. The two split up the work. One was responsible for manually pulling the release mechanism, while the other removed the damaged disk. During the operation, their oxygen supplies ran out. Tana could hold his breath for an extraordinary amount of time, but Nia was an ordinary person. By the time Tana returned, he found her unconscious on the floor. Fortunately, the robotic assistant was successfully restarted. The story then jumps forward, showing Nia and Tana living a happy life together. Their garden finally begins producing edible fruits and plants. In the final scenes, the two share the food they worked so hard to grow, laughing together with genuine happiness. The last shot focuses on one of the artificial wombs, strongly suggesting that their plan to bring new life into the world has finally succeeded. And that's the end of the movie. Thanks for watching. Don't forget that your opinion matters to us, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel.